jump into the second part where we talk about the software and system software and applications. Okay, so I'm focusing this on save my exams, so you can see all these revision notes are there, as well as the revision notes will be the updated notes will be shared with you through WhatsApp group, as well as you'll be able to find the details in my LMS as well. Okay, perfect. Super. So let's jump in and see what the points we need to cover up in system, software, and applications. So primarily, these are all focused on questions, guys. So as we discussed during the last class as well, we will be focusing on entirely on the questions and the primary set of theories. So if you get to download this note, please do download this, take a print, and you can write your notes on the right side of the document, which will then allow you to make sure that you can have a hard copy to study. Okay, super. So jumping back into this, so what is software? Software. So this is a question focused towards asking about the big picture of software, not exactly like going into in depth. So, in basic terms, software is the set of programs that control the hardware, right? So, in this case, the keyword is hardware, right? Because in order for you to control hardware, you need to have some sort of a software which will run on the computer, right? So, they live on the computer system but cannot be physically touched. So that physical part is also a specific keyword, because now it's like this. Now the hardware is something which we have physically fixed inside the PC itself, right? We have CPUs, we have hard drives, and so on and so forth. But the software is the one which runs on the hardware. So software can be broken down into two categories. Primarily, we have application software and we have system software. So application software is something. Let's go through these two and try to understand what is application and system. Okay, so you have a diagram here. You can see this separates the hardware and software into two different parts. So we have the computer system on the top, and then we have the side of hardware, which is entirely dedicated to hardware and components. Other way around, we have the software, which is then divided or branched into two different categories as system and application. Okay, so let's jump in and see. So, what is application software? So, application software, straightforward. Application software, abbreviated apps, is basically software that is chosen by the user to help them carry out a certain set of specific tasks. Okay, so examples, let's say you have Microsoft Word, right, or PowerPoint, or Excel, or let's say PUBG, or Call of Duty, Counter Strike. So those are all applications, right? So they run on top of your operating system, which will then allow you to carry out some sort of a specific task. So if you take Microsoft Word, then Word will let you process a Word document, right? Otherwise, if it is Excel, then it will let you process an Excel document, right? So that's the specific task. So remember the keywords again. So application software is software chosen by a user to help them carry out a specific task. Okay, so remember the keywords. As I always say, if you at least, if by any chance if you forget a keyword, still try to write the meaning in a specific way so that you can make sure that you give out the exact meaning out. But yes, you guys must remember the keywords. Okay, then application software. So the second point is application software is installed on top of system software and is user chosen to best suit the industry requirements. Okay, so what is this? What's the meaning of this? So now application software is, as you know, now a system software is the base layer of an application, sorry, a computer. So it's installed on top of the system software, and this is chosen to be best suited for industry requirements. So that means depending on the industry, like let's say if you are a graphic designer, then you would be choosing a certain set of applications which will let you perform different tasks related to graphics on your PC, right? Let's say if you are a video editor, then you would install a certain set of applications which will focus on video editing, right? Then that would let you edit videos, edit, do whatever the changes you want in that video to using those softwares. So, common categories of application softwares includes word processing, spreadsheets, database management systems, control management systems. Let's say control management system is like using different types of sensors and measures and control the system. Video editing, graphic editing, audio editing, and computer aided design. So computer aided design, CAD, means where we use these softwares to design different types of models. So architectures use CAD to design their architectural diagrams, as well as 3D artists and all, they use CAD to design 3D diagrams and all sorts of anything which is related to 3D modeling. Okay, so first, in my personal opinion, what I say is remember all these points, because usually this is a very common question where you get to list down or to explain what is application software, and you might get questions asking to list a certain set of application softwares. So in this case, it will be quite straightforward. Just remember one of these softwares. And here we do not talk about gaming, but yes, you can talk about gaming as well. But just to be on the safe side, remember this set of the softwares. That would be more than enough. Okay. So we do have a examiner tips and trick here. So when writing about application software, it says ensure to refer to it by its type and not a brand name. Okay. So for example, word processing and not Microsoft Word. Okay. So that is also a key point, because now when we say Excel, Excel is technically not related to spreadsheets, right? Excel is something which is taken as a computer software name. So Microsoft has Excel, Google has Google Sheets, right? So depending on the application, they do have different names for these softwares. But as a whole, what they do is they do manage a spreadsheet, and other way around, they help you manage word processing, right? So remember, when you're writing it, it's better if you write the process or the product or basically the process you follow, apart from writing the name of the software. Okay, then we jump into system software. Guys, if you want to take any notes, please pause the video, and you can write it on the right hand side column, so that you can make sure that the points are written down. Okay, so then what is system software? In this case, we jump into a little bit of a complex point, where system software is essential for the operation of a computer system. Okay, so in simple terms, system software is the underlying layer which will basically boot up the system. So without system software, a user has no starting point for giving a computer the instructions, right? So system software gives the user a platform to run the applications and to carry out a certain tasks. So essential services carried out by the system software includes following set of items. So it includes a compiler. So compiler means it's a high level programming language compiler which will transform the programming language into machine code. Then we have linkers, which will combine objects into a single execution program. We have device drivers, which will basically control hardware's components and peripherals. as well as we have the operating system at the end, where it will manage all the computer's resources at a single point and will provide a proper user interface. And on top of this, we have utilities. So utilities are for the specific tasks which has to be performed in a computer to make sure that the computer is running on its optimal performance. Okay, so in simple terms, we have to keep in mind these key points. So if you get a question as what is system software, the best would be the system software is software essential for the operation of a computer system. Okay, so keep in mind during our classes we went through this, where I showed you guys how a computer gets booted up and how the BIOS goes through the system and how it loads up all the operating systems when the system is powered on, right? So if you missed that video, go down to the IGCSE ICT class, ICT playlist, and you should be able to find that in the first unit where we talked about software. So in this case, how it works is, now this particular system software as a base layer, and it will start the compilation part or the loading of the initial hardware, right? And then it will then jump into the operating system. So the operating system is basically the core underlying layer where it will connect both worlds together. Right? So that will basically connect you and the hardware with the interface so that you can control and perform different tasks on your PC, right? And on top of this system software or operating system, I might say, you install your applications. So you need an operating system, let's say Microsoft Windows, in order for you to run Microsoft Office, right? Okay, and then on top of all these, so we do have this underlying, again, like let's say this is again falling under the same category as system software, where we call this as utilities. So utilities are there to make sure that you can maintain, you will be able to maintain the computer's active resources and different optimizations. So example is, now during one of our previous classes, we went through the task manager, and we discussed how the task manager works, and we just briefly went through it, and we understood on how it does manage with memory management and so on and so forth. So all these things falls under utility software. So let's see what do we have with utilities. So utility software. What is utility software? Utility software is a type of software designed to help maintain, enhance, and troubleshoot, repair a computer system. Remember the keywords, it's maintain, enhance, and troubleshoot or repair a computer system. Okay, so here utility software is designed to perform a limited number of tasks. Okay, so they are not like full on applications which will have multiple different tools. They are focused towards performing a specific task. Okay, and utility softwares interact with the computer's hardware. For example, secondary storage devices, or let's say your graphic cards, or if you have some sort of specific card where it will handle audio, or some sort of a specific let's say task. All these things can be controlled by utility softwares. So some utility softwares comes installed with the operating system, and some softwares you will have to install it on your own. Okay, so let's say examples, let's go through few examples of utility softwares. But everybody who has a separate VGA card or a graphic card, you guys will all your graphic cards will have some specific let's say type of a tool which you will install on your PC to handle different activities inside in the graphic card. So usually if it is I think for MSI cards we have this application called Afterburner. So likewise you have different types of tools where you can actually tweak the hardware. So ideally the operating system is connected, so sorry, your VJ card is connected through operating system through drivers, right, system drivers. And when when it connects through the drivers, still you do not have enough access to perform different activities from the softwares. So for that, what you do is you install a certain set of system software or a system software like this one as a utility, and then on top of that you have the options of managing. Okay, so just check this out, and you might find out what type of features are there. Okay, perfect. Then we'll we'll go through a set of available utility softwares, and we'll see what they do. So first of all, defragmentation. Okay, so this is a software which will basically focus on the category as maintenance. Okay, so defragmentation, we went through this in depth during our theory class, but here I'm going to briefly explain this. So again, I'm referring for you to go back to the video if you need to go in depth about, if you need to learn in depth about this, you can refer to the video back in the playlist. So defragmentation software, in simple terms, what it does is it groups fragmented files back together in order to improve access speed. So how it works is, now you can see you have two different hard drives. So we call this the platter. Okay, so inside the on the platter we do have small magnetic bits. So the problem is when you start writing data, this bits get scattered around the platter in different locations. So in simple terms, when I say scattered, like how it works is, let's say if we start writing from one of these points, and then let's say I have written data up to this extent, and you write something else in these last three blocks. And what happens is ultimately there will be a point where you would delete some data here. Okay. Now what happens is, now your hard disk doesn't have enough. So since your hard disk basically trying to put data into the available slots or available gaps in the proper order. No? So when it does not have enough space, it will start putting it into different locations. So what happens is, when these gaps are not exactly filled, it's going to be, the data is going to be scattered around the place. And what happens is, now over time, when these files are like very, like let's say fragmented, then your hard disk has to perform a lot of activities to read this, because you have this arm which runs on the platter itself. So just think, one file, one pointer is here, the other pointer is here, other point is there, and so on and so forth. So that means in order for you to read the entire file, it's going to take a long time, right? So I hope you guys got the brief idea. So let's go through the points again. So as programs and data added to a new hard disk drive, it's added in order. So what happens is, with over time, as I said, the files are deleted, then it is going to leave gaps. So then these gaps has to be backed up and filled back together, right? So, but keep in mind, this fragmentation can only happen on magnetic storage. Okay, so remember that point. Now, nowadays we all use solid state drives, SSDs, okay, solid state drives, and we have pen drives also. They all use the same architecture as the solid state drives. So in those drives there is no spinning or moving objects. It's basically a certain set of transistors which will hold the memory even if it does not have power, right? But in those type of transistor based systems, we do not get this issue because they fill it up according to the requirement, and there is no such thing as manual writing. But in the magnetic disks, this literally moves on top of the platter and it manually writes all the data into these platters, right? So then in that case only we get this problem. So I know it's a bit difficult to keep in mind, but keep this idea. So if the concept of defragmentation is still a little bit difficult, then hopefully this set will let you understand, right? So in a tidy bedroom, if you can find some things faster, they are in the right place in order, right? So when it's moving to different places, then basically you forget to put them back, and if you put it into different places, then next time when you want to find it, it's going to take you a long time, right? So defragmenting is similar to getting your room back in order. Okay, so that's about defragmentation. Then we talk about compression. So compression is falling under the category called enhancing. Okay, so what does it do in simple terms? I hope you all know, you have all have tried compression, compressing a file. Okay, so compression reduces the amount of secondary storage required by performing an algorithm on the original data. So during the class we went through these two algorithms, lossless and lossy compressions, right? So lossy compression physically removes the data from the original to reduce the size. I showed you guys with couple of images on how the compression ratio worked. So the original file, so in simple terms, lossy, what it does is it will remove a certain set of data from the image itself so that it can reduce the original file size. Okay, but the problem is when this compression is done, or when this compression happens, there is no way for us to revert back to the original file. Okay, so original file cannot be recreated because when you compress it, you will literally, or that algorithm, not you, the algorithm will literally remove a certain set of pieces from the data file. Okay, other way around, lossless compression means that this is this is technically a mathematical system where it will order the data into a more efficient structure so that it will reduce the size. So in this case, when you go with lossless compression, there is a chance where you can, the original file is always can be recreated without zero data loss. Okay, so the best example for this is you can find out two different types of audio in the market. So you have compressed audio like MP3s and whatever you stream online, like on Spotify and all these streaming platforms. Usually what you get is a compressed audio version, but you do have a certain set of streaming platforms like Deezer, and now Apple Music also has high definition, high resolution audio. So there are some platforms which will allow you to go with lossless audio. So there is a massive difference between the compressed audio and the lossless audio because they contain more data. Okay, so now in the lossless audio version, yes, when it decompresses or when it is playing, still all the information is there. And another example for this is we have image compression algorithms. So you can actually compress an image using something like JPG or PNG, and we do have compression algorithms where they literally remove a certain set of pixels from the image. So they shave it off, and then that will give us more space. Okay, as well as we do have compression algorithms where we will compress the image without damaging any data. Then, now that was about enhancing. So we do have another point for enhancing, which is encryption. So encryption, remember the keyword, guys. Huh? So all these keywords which is highlighted or in bold, these are some points which you must keep in mind. So because when you're writing the answer, you must make sure that you will write at least one of these keywords so that your answer will make it your answer will be a proper complete answer. So encryption is the process of scrambling data using an algorithm. Okay, so in this case it can be something like from plain text to a ciphertext, or it can be again encrypting a drive itself. So sometimes encryption means you just encrypt one text into a cipher, and you keep a key so that you can decrypt it whenever you want. Otherwise, we do have a method of encrypting your hard disks as well. So the entire disks can be encrypted using a specific key, and whenever you want to access that disk, you need to get access to that particular key in order to view the details. Okay, so there are different types of encryption. So encryption softwares, they are designed to enhance the security, right? Because then when you encrypt the data, it will automatically make sure that your computer system is safe. Okay, so usually what we do is, now example, if you take my MacBook Pro, I have actually encrypted the drive itself. So even if somebody, let's say somebody steals the laptop, even if we to take it out, they will never be able to get the data, because as long as they know the password as well as my security, like biometric security, my fingerprint, nobody can unlock the laptop. Yes, they can like uh, break it down and get all the parts, but even then again, if you try to remove that storage chip, still there won't be any access. You won't sorry you won't have any access to the data set, or for the files. Okay, so then the last point we are going to discuss is about troubleshooting. So in primary terms, what we need is we will always use the task manager. So the task manager is basically a software that is built into the operating system to allow users to monitor resources. So you guys all should know how this works. So the task manager in Windows, if you right click on your taskbar and get the menu, you should be able to see a menu item called the task manager. So the task manager will basically show you a certain set of options. It will show you the processes, the running processes, the performance of your machine, history of all the applications, startup apps, users and services. Okay, so services means all the backend services which are running on your machine at that particular point. Example is, if you install, let's say, WhatsApp will keep a service up and running. Oh, sorry, the application up and running, which will make sure that you have messages which is coming in. Or if you install something like, let's say, Google Cloud Storage or Microsoft OneDrive, then also they install services which will then, behind the scenes, they monitor the file uploads and changes. Example is, if you have installed OneDrive on your machine, and if you upload a file into one of those shared folders, just like that it's going to get uploaded, right? And then you will get access to that particular file, right? So likewise, those features are there. Okay guys, so when it comes to a example, so here we have a question asking, describe how utility softwares can reduce access time for large file storage on magnetic media. So obviously, as we discussed, this is part of the defragmentation, right? So I have explained this couple of times, but I'll explain it again as well. Keep in mind, when you get a question where you have 2 marks, okay, so that means the examination board is expecting you to write a direct answer where we have 2 sections in it. Okay, so now in an ideal scenario, you can use any one of these points. Okay, so file example is by defragmenting file data, or by defragmenting the hard drive that has been allocated randomly to free space, by placing file data in adjacent sectors to reduce the need to spin the disk or seek across the platter's surface. Okay, so these are all the particular answers you can provide for this question. But keep in mind, since these are like specific answers, you have to connect them to a single answer and you have to write this as a single point. So remember, since this is asking for a 2 mark answer, you have to make sure that you will have 2 keywords in your answer itself. So you can say, by defragmenting a hard drive or by defragmenting file data, you will reduce the need to spin the disk or to seek across the platter's surface. Or you can say, by placing file data in adjacent sectors, this will reduce the need to spin the disk. Or you can say, by placing file data in adjacent sectors, it will reduce the need to seek across the platter's surface to find the data. Okay, so write these sample answers on the document itself and practice it. Always remember, if you have a 2 mark question, that means it needs to have an answer where it will have 2 sections in it. Okay, perfect. Then we jump into role and functions of an operating system. Okay, so in this case, now we are directly talking about an OS, an operating system. So first of all, what is an operating system? It's something which is similar to a software, right? But in this case, operating system, the OS, is the software that provides the interface between the user and the hardware in a computer system. So this basically bridges the gap between us and the hardware. Okay, so in this operating system, this basically is created in a way so that it can hide the complexity of the hardware. Now, example is, if we take some sort of a hardware device, it is going to be extremely hard for us to communicate with it, right? Because we do not know how to communicate with hardware. We don't know how to send data or receive data back from a hardware, or how that particular structure works. But in this case, when we have the operating system, the operation layer, then this allows us to communicate with the hardware and to make it easier, right? So example is, now if you take a printer, now let's say you want to take a printout. Do you know how to take a printout? Practically, no, I have no idea, right? Because taking a printout requires a massive set of activities which has to be done in a specific way, and this hardware connectivity has to be there, and so on and so forth. It's going to be a big process. But in this case, in the operating system, you just have an option to print. You just click on print and it prints, right? You select whatever the page you want to print and done. Right, so that is what we call that, call as the complexity is hidden. So a user does not need to know where on secondary storage where it is saved. and the user doesn't get the option of doesn't get the requirement of understanding how this complexity works. So there are two main types of operating systems. So we have the single user operating systems. So these are keywords, guys, remember. And we have the network operating systems in OS. Okay. So these two, the difference between these two is an operating system has many functions in it. So this includes memory management, resource management, security, and as I said, print spooling. Okay. So remember the keywords. So if you get the question asking what is an operating system, you must make sure that these answers are properly provided. Okay, so let's see the difference between single user and network operating systems. Single user operating systems, they allow for a single general user to use the system, right? So network operating systems, they work in a bit of a different way, where they provide access to network storage and shared resources. Okay, so other way around, single users, no option to customize the user interface for different users because it's basically focused on your single usage. But network operating systems, the server sends requests when the user log in with the username and password. So basically you log into a server. Okay, so because of that reason, there are multiple factors where you can customize. Then single user typically used on a on household appliances, like basically your laptop or your desktop PC and all. But other way around, the network operating systems users are basically kept on separate access levels. So in a network operating system, the users does not have access to that particular hardware, but the user details are kept on a separate server. So what you do is you authenticate with the server first, and you get whatever the details of your user account, and then it will make sure the authentication is connected. But if it is, let's say, if it is just a single use of application, then that means we are basically having all your authentication and all the systems on the single machine itself. Okay, so then we talk about perfect. So then we jump into resource management. So earlier we talked about the operating systems. Now we talked about the resource management. So resource management, memory, will start from the memory management. Okay. So memory management is a process where it carried out by the operating system, where it allocates memory between the programs when it is required. Okay, so in terms, so read this, understand the terms. So memory management is a process carried out by the operating system allocating main memory, the RAM, between different programs that are opened at the same time. So how it works is, depending on the requirement of the memory of your machine, and depending on the requirement of the memory of whatever the software or the application, the memory management system must make sure that everybody gets enough memory to run this application. So example is like when you turn on your operating system, when you turn on the computer requires a certain amount of memory to make sure it runs all its tasks, right? At the same time, if you do not have enough memory allocated to a software, then again it can turn to be a problem because your application might not properly run, right? So the OS is responsible of copying programs and data from the storage, like from the secondary storage to the primary storage, as well as programs and data requires different amounts of RAM. As we know, basically to operate efficiently, it has to be properly given, right? So if this memory is not allocated to whatever the software, then it's going to be a problem because your software might not fully work, right? So RAM is allocated based on priority and fairness. For example, let's say if we take a system application, they might have a higher priority because they need high amount of memory to run the system. At the same time, your OS dynamically manages the memory as well, where it will make sure that adjusting and allocating the memory as needed to make sure the performance is optimal, as well as memory management makes multitasking possible, right? Without memory management, you will not be able to multitask. Then we talk about the processors. So processor management, then like after the memory, we have the process management. So the processor management is the process carried out by the operating system where it divides time, or we call it as slicing, into small chunks and allocate them into different programs. So this can be done only using the CPU. So CPU can only execute one instruction at a time, and it can be execute billions of them in 1 second, right? So the OS decides what program gets access to the CPU to give the user the perception of being able to use multiple programs at the same time, right? And then we have, so once the processor management is done, then we have input and outputs. So input outputs management is the process where the operating system manages the interactions with the softwares at your hardware. So this allocates the particular system resources into different input output points, where this will handle all the plug and play functionality as much as possible. So automatically, this will automatically make sure it will automatically detect and configure new input outputs, as well as without the need for many without the need for manually installing, right? Example is, if we have something like a, let's say, something like a printer. So the printer has the option of basically plugging it into the laptop or PC, and it will immediately start to work, right? So likewise, that input output and the plug and play functionality is being handled by the input outputs. Then we have the management of files. So file management is basically the process carried out by the system, where it will make sure creating, organizing, manipulating and accessing the files and folders on a system is properly done. The OS manages where the data is stored in both primary and secondary storage, as well as the file management gives the user the ability to create, rename, move, update, delete, and copy files and folders within the system, right? So without a file management system, no point, we won't be able to handle the system, right? So the OS allows the user to make sure that perform this task, as well as we do have the permissions, because without the permission management, that is also going to be a problem, because anybody can do anything in the system, right, in your laptop or your application. So to prevent that, what we have is, we have the system where we have the rule as called permissions. So based on the permissions, we can control what type of criteria which will be, who will get access to it. So the OS, at the same time, the OS provides search functionality as well, so that it will make sure the system gets the limited access. Okay. Then we talk about security. So security is basically the process of enabling users to log in and log out into a system, where a system administrator is able to allocate different access rights for different users on the network. At the same time, the OS is able to maintain settings for individual users, such as, let's say, desktop backgrounds, colors, and so on and so forth, as well as there's going to be logs, so that OS audits will keep log files of all the activities which the user performs in it. At the same time, operating systems can provide software firewalls as well. So we discussed in depth about firewalls when we went through the network module, right? So I hope you guys remember that point. Then finally we have the print spooling. So print spooling is a process which is carried out by the operating system when printing is required. So the spooler creates a temporary holding area, something like a queue. So I hope you guys might have seen this. So when you try to take a print, that printing is actually put into something known as a queue, right? So then in that queue, when you add multiple prints, it would get queued up, and then it will automatically get executed, right? So these queues will make sure that the print process goes smoothly and efficiently, so that multiple people or multiple commands can be sent into the same printing spool. Okay, so perfect. So that's the end of this part, where we let's see another worked example. So explain one reason an administrator would use a network operating system to manage users. Tricky question. So we have to make sure, again, this is a question where you get 2 points. So that means this is a linked question. So we have few examples. Okay, so one is multiple people can use the same computer because users can be added and deleted, right? So since the network operating system, the users are managed in the network, so that means on a single machine which is connected to the network OS can have multiple logins. So second one, only specific users can securely access their storage space because user permission can be edited. That is also true. Or only certain users can install programs and access certain files because user permissions can be enforced. So example is now when it comes to the storage space, let's say I have an account and you have an account. If you log into the system, you will be given an operating system with all the features in it, but whatever you change in your storage, let's say in your documents or in, let's say, my documents folder, that is locked to your account. Now if I log into the same PC with my account, whatever I see there, it is going to be my content. I will not be able to access your content or none of the data. Okay, same thing goes as for the program. So if I install some sort of a program, programs or program into this application, according to my access level, I will have access to it. If by any chance, let's say, if I have administrative access, then yes, then I can do and perform a certain set of activities. But if I don't have access to, like, if my access is not defined in the backend, then I will not be able to access anything. Okay, and then the limited storage on the machine can be shared. So that is also based on the user permissions, where you can actually share a certain set of, let's say, a limit to the user, because the amount of resource storage can be controlled. Okay, so these answers, practice it and read and understand how it works, and that is how the structure is made. Okay, so please be careful, guys. Remember the keywords, and always remember the pattern these answers are made of with, so that it will be quite easy for you guys to go and understand. Perfect. So that will be a wrap up for this particular session, and let's jump into another session again. Check the next video where we will be talking about application software, which will start from Office Productivity Tools. Okay, see you back again.